Hello and welcome back to another episode of Strong Collectors Comics. I'm Jordan, and I'm joined today by my plucky co-host Dakota. And last year, we did a decent amount of comic reading. Personally, I was doing some more current series. Dakota took the assignment to go back through the backlogs and really plow through quite a few books, over 600, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So Dakota, first of all, how does it feel?
I think it was cool that I tracked them all because, you go through the year and you're like, oh yeah, I read comics last year, but you don't always remember everything you read. Some of them stuck out as really good. Some of them kind of fade into the background, but having my list here, I feel pretty accomplished. I don't know if I've ever read that many comics in a year, but having the Marvel app was super helpful. A vast majority of this is going to be mostly Marvel. There was some Image, some Dynamite. Did I read any DC last year? I read like a few DCs last year. So
Okay. So a strong collector comic here for Dakota. That goes without saying, folks. So Dakota's going to give us some of his thoughts on some of the things you read. How do you want to break this down, Dakota? Because I do think it's a cool idea to think about logging your comics. I don't know if any of our listeners out there do that. If you say, this year I read these books. But if this is something you want to do moving forward, it could be kind of a fun thing. Maybe at the end of the year we could do some rundowns.
Yeah.
Eventually get some callers. Maybe you can tell
Ooh.
us what you read this year, because we're always looking for hearing what people have been reading. So
I like that.
however you'd like to do that, Dakota, you go ahead.
Yeah, so I think I'll break it down. I'm going to do physical first since that was a little bit shorter of a list than what I read digitally. And then probably with each series, I'll give you like a 5-star rating of like how good I thought it was. So starting off, and not really in any particular order because some of these were current series that were coming out month by month. But the most recent one, the like very end of the year, you let me borrow a Plastic Man. It's Plastic Man 1 through 6. I don't remember like when
On
that
the
came
Lamb,
out.
I think it was
Yeah.
called.
Art on that one was really fun. I won't go into deep dives on all these, but the art on that was very comic book, very cartoon, felt very Plastic Man. I would give that one, it's the best Plastic Man story I've ever read. It's the only one I've ever read, but really liked it. I'd give that probably I'm going to give it 5 stars. 5 stars for what it was. Not as good as some other stories, but for being a Plastic Man, it was fun, goofy. 5 stars. Miss Fury, this was a Dynamite story. Really cool art. Sort of in the vein of Project Superpowers. I can't give everything like super high. Like it was a 3-star. It was a good story.
Okay.
You could read it. It was fun.
Is this part of Project Superpowers, or it's something different?
I don't think it's necessarily tied in. I think maybe she shows up in Project Superpowers, but I don't think she's like. If she is, she's a very like side character. I don't know exactly for sure, but there was really no tie into Project Superpowers in this story, at least.
It's still one I got to read, Project
Yeah,
Superpowers. It's on my list. I'll read it this year.
Okay.
And we'll talk about it.
There you go. That's a 5-star book for sure.
All right.
Next, I read the IDW ROM Volume 1, 2, and 3. I think there's a 4th volume out there, but that one's like super expensive. The other ones were super easy to get. But as far as Volume 1, 2, and 3, I'd give that 4 stars as well. Again, very fun as far as ROM goes. I know you got the older comics. I tend to like more newish things. The older books can get a little bit drawn out for me, so it was fun. There's some tie-ins with G.I. Joes and Transformers that's a little odd, but it works.
I think they were building towards like a crossover or something, and then they lost the rights, so I don't think they got to pull it off.
I think they had some series because there was like a kind of a gap where it's like you get through ROM Volume 1, and then in Volume 2 it starts off, and he's like, oh, I just like finished up this mission with the Autobots and G.I. Joes, and then the G.I. Joes are like kind of against ROM. So there is some crossover there. I didn't read the full crossover, but I know what happened. Then I read the second Spawn Compendium. The Spawn stuff can get a little drawn out. This one, I think the beginning was a little, I would give like 2 stars. Towards the end, though, I think it picked up to be a 3.5 star. I don't think you're ever going to get blown away by some of this like middle of the road Spawn stuff, but as far as Spawn goes, it was pretty good. Moving through, I got Crystar. Go watch the Strong Collectors, our top 10, 5, however many action figures we did. Crystar was very high on my list. Made me want to come back and buy these comics. Comics are probably 2-star. The story's a little doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's fun. It's fantasy. It's one of the oldest books I've like actually wanted to read, so it's got that going for it.
I'd love if they did a collected edition of that. They ought to do that.
Yeah, they should. I think.
But, so I don't think they do. They're more like on unlimited, right? Or
No.
single. No, not unlimited.
No.
You had to track them down single issue.
Yeah, they're too old to be on unlimited. I think unlimited really only puts those out when they do collected editions.
Right.
So if they do in the future do a collected edition, then that's probably when it will get on the app. But yeah, I had to go back and find physical books. Next was Punk Rock Jesus. I think you've got this from me right now, Jordan.
I have it. Haven't read it yet,
Okay.
but it's sitting on my shelf behind me.
Read it this year. I remember my uncle has these like framed in his house, so I was like, I got to check this out. It was a black and white comic. I think the actual comics might be black and white too, so that threw me off a little bit, but the story was cool. 5 stars. I liked it. I tried explaining it to my wife, and I was like, this and that. It's a whole web of craziness. Very
Things,
good. Yeah. Then The Spider, another Dynamite, similar to Miss Fury. This one I think I liked a little bit more. Still probably like a 3.5, 4-star book. The art is really good on these. I'd like to read more of it, but I only have 1 volume, so I got it like on sale at Half Price Books. Then I think for Christmas last year, you had got me the Tim Sale Batman collection book. 5 stars there. I love Tim Sale. Anything Tim Sale does, that's incredible.
Because they're kind of just like fill in like other stories
Right.
he did outside of like Long Halloween,
Yeah.
Haunted Night, or whatever, Dark Victory, or whatever.
Similar, like just very like one-shots almost. But yeah, that was pretty fun. And even like the stories are really good too. I don't remember who does the writing in those, but the art is Tim Sale, and I love Tim Sale. Then I read Thundercats, just 1 through 6. I'll probably just go through these because these are kind of like partial. Like some of them came out this year, some were before. But Thundercats, Gargoyles Quest, Gunslinger, Spawn, the like main current series, King Spawn, Rat City, Scorched, Sam and Twitch, and Lilo and Stitch. Out of all those,
Sam and Twitch and Lilo and Stitch. That
Yeah.
sounds like a fun crossover.
and I would say those 2 are my favorite out of that like groupings. Gargoyles was good too, but Sam and Twitch is my favorite part of the Spawn universe, so I'm happy to see them getting their own issue or their own series again. And then Lilo and Stitch was just a fun time with Disney. So that is all the physical
Sam and
books.
Stitch and Lilo and Twitch. Ooh, swap them.
I like it. If we get Todd back on the podcast,
McFarlane Disney crossover.
I'm sure he'd be down with
Then
that.
Spawn shows up. That'd be good. Sorry, continue.
So that was all the physical books.
Okay.
I bought on Humble Bundle. I got all of the IDW Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I only read the first collected edition of that, so that was 18 issues. That was really cool. I'm very excited to read more of that this year. I'd probably give that. That's the only Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles I've ever read. 5 stars. It was good. I loved it.
Yeah, those ones are pretty well regarded, I think, as like getting the classic feel, but not like cartoon adaptation. Like it's not super gritty dark, but also brings those together. So, yeah. I still want to read those.
I'm pretty sure it's the entire run of IDW, so I don't know if I'll get through all of it this year, but I'll definitely be reading a few more of those. I highly recommend. Now, getting into the Marvel Unlimited app. This will be pretty much in order of how I read them. Started off with Weird World. There's 2 different volumes of that, 2 like separate stories. They weren't like they were connected because of the world, but it was like following different characters. 3 stars, probably just because it's not super important. It doesn't like it ties into like the Elseworlds type of thing, but it's not. You could not read it and it's fine. I think if you like kind of the more Conan type stories, you'd probably really like these. And Chris Starr and kind of that cast of characters shows up a little bit. There's a lot of Man-Thing happening. Morgan Le Fay is kind of the overarching villain, but not necessary. Then Champions, and that kind of includes like the Champion Annuals and then some tie-ins with the Avengers. To me, that's 5 stars. Champions is probably one of my newer found favorite teams. Obviously, it's kind of hard to like the Justice League and Avengers are obviously great. X-Men are great. But as far as new things that I've read, Champions was probably one of my favorites.
All right.
Then Death of X. I don't even remember that, so I'm going to give it a 2-star. I read a lot of X-Men last year, so it kind of blurs together. Read Cosmic Ghost Rider. That one, I think I'd give 3.5 stars too. I liked it. The art was fun. If I didn't read it, I wouldn't be super upset about it. But I'm glad I did read it. Then I read the 2015 Spider-Gwen. That was good. Probably, again, another 3.5. Slightly forgettable, but still fun.
Yeah.
Then back to some more Champions for their kind of, I don't know what that'd be, like second volume, or like they restarted with issue 1 again, but 5 stars again. Love it. That includes what is it, Incoming and Outlawed. So that's you laugh at this because it's they kind of outlaw being a superhero unless you're registered, but only for kids. So
oh no.
Then I read Iceman. That was like the 2017 run, like right after he like comes out as gay. I thought that was pretty cool.
Solo Iceman book, that intrigues me, the idea.
I'd give that one, I think, 4 stars. Not the best thing I read all year, but it was more memorable. And I think, like you said, like you don't really get much solo Iceman, and I think they did a really good job. I thought the writing was pretty fun. Then some tie-ins, I think, with Champions, Venomized. I don't know what happened. Everything got Venomized, I'm sure.
Right.
Probably
those symbiotes were busy last year.
2 stars probably. Don't remember what happened in it other than everybody got Venom on them. Then there's like an X-Men Black series where you had like kind of one-shots of Magneto, Mojo, Mystique, Juggernaut, and Emma Frost.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Those were, I mean, I'm not going to like rank each one of them individually. As a collective, I would say like high 3.5, because I thought it was cool to like read a Mojo story. Like I've never read a solo Mojo book, but it was kind of fun. The Emma Frost one was kind of cool. She like takes over as Black Queen. Well, you know, spoiler alert, she's the new Black King after that one ends. So they were fun. Then read Elektra, Black, White, and Blood. I'd give that one 5 stars. Those Black, White, and Blood stories kind of are a collection of like short stories, and I think those are pretty cool. Obviously, there's some that are better than others, but I really liked what I was reading there. I told you I'd read the Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood, and that one made no sense because I didn't know it was a collection of short stories. So it was like I just kept switching. So I was like, am I just like switching in his brain right now, or am I supposed to be reading separate stories? Like some of them were backwards.
Madness.
Some of them were like you'd get part here, then you go back to the front, and then it was just, that was too confusing for me. I'd have to go back and reread it now. Then read Phoenix Resurrection, and then kind of tying into that, Jean Grey. Not great. 2 stars there. Especially Phoenix Resurrection. I don't remember really loving that one very much at all. Jean Grey was kind of okay because that was the all-new X-Men Jean Grey, so it was the younger version. Then X-Men Red. I'd give that one probably 4 stars. Those were pretty fun. Then Amazing Fantasy. This was, the concept of this is a 5-star to me. I would love to get more of this. This was kind of another Elseworlds where it's all a little bit more medieval, but it's like pulling in like Black Widow and Captain America. Like a few different superheroes got pulled in. I think Spider-Man and like Uncle Ben is like leading this resistance, but he's a little crazy. So
like medieval fantasy Marvel,
right?
Is the vibe I got.
Yeah. So I think concept 5 stars. Execution wasn't bad either. I'll give it 4 stars. Then I read Astonishing X-Men. This isn't the Astonishing X-Men that is my favorite X-Men story of all time. It was a cool cast of characters. 4 stars.
Or was it astonishing?
It was good. Low 4 stars.
Should have just been the good X-Men.
That's true. I think
the okay X-Men.
The acceptable X-Men.
Ooh, that'd be funny.
Acceptable. I think we're onto something there, Jordan.
Yeah. Not great, but we'll do the trick.
Right.
Acceptable. All right, continue.
Then Wolverine, Black, White, and Blood. I'll give that one 4 stars. Good. No, I'll give that one 5 stars. That one was good. I like that one a lot. Generation X, I read issue 1, tried it out. Didn't love it. This was the newer 2017 version. Maybe I'll go back and read it. Jubilee's leading that team. I couldn't finish it, so I was just like, other things I want to read more. Extermination. Again, I can't, like, with all these different things, and then it kind of culminates and switches to House and Powers of X. I feel like a lot of that was, well, we'll get into House and Powers of X, so moving on.
Right.
Uncanny X-Men Annual, that just ties into the other X-Men stuff. Extinction also ties into that stuff. X-Men 97, just kind of accompanying the cartoon. 5 stars for what it is. If you're trying to read the best X-Men story ever, it's not that. If you're just wanting something to go along with your cartoons, reminds me of kind of how they did the 90s comics, was very much like the cartoons. That's kind of what you're getting there. Then Hulk Gray, 10 stars. Again, we got Tim Sale.
Classic.
Last time I was with you, I got that like oversized hardcover. That's good stuff. That's
an all-time great
right
Hulk story for sure.
Then getting to Uncanny X-Men. This was like, I was trying to do this like read up to House and Powers of X, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna like, I pretty much went from like post Avengers versus X-Men, which I like read in 2023, into these X-Men stories, and I was like, I'm gonna read all this, and I'm gonna get to House and Powers of X. I'm gonna be ready to go. But none of it tied in. Like they just like hard cut, like in this story, like they're fighting Legion. Legion does this like crazy like reality warp thing, and then it just kind of like ends, and then it switches to House and Powers of X. So I was like, the story is okay, but it's almost just pointless. So like no stars for that one. Like yeah, not in the sense that it's bad. It's just like, why read it? Because it's not going to just skip to House and Powers of X. Like people had said that. I remember seeing it in this like message boards and stuff. Like, oh, you don't really need to read anything before. And I was like, yeah, right. I'm going to read the X-Men prior to. No, really, don't waste your time reading anything. Start with House and Powers of X. So then we get into House and Powers of X. I'm going to give that 5 stars, just because this one I feel like has kind of like worked its way into my brain of like I read it and I was like, okay, that was okay. Like interesting story. But it's like one that I keep thinking about, and I'm like, I really want to go back and read like after this, because the setup for what they're doing with the world was really cool. I don't think you've read this, have you?
No, I had it on my list because I like, that's kind of, to me, Jonathan Hickman. He's the writer there, his style. Like, you won't always be like, right away, I love it, but it's kind of like that for me, where the more I'll think about it, I'll be like, actually, that was pretty interesting, and it'll stick with you.
And it was even like...
So you start with, is it House of X? And that's like what? 6
it's kind of like layered,
something?
where you read like House of X, then Powers of X, then House of X, then Powers of X.
Like
it's kind
back
of the
and
reading
forth?
order. I think so, yeah. And they have like on Unlimited where you can read like in the order.
The guide?
I think so.
Because I would like to read that whole series or whatever he was doing there, but
yeah, and I think it tells you like at the end of the book, like next issue is this. So yeah, I thought that was at the time
5 stars.
At the time I thought it was good. I probably would have given it like maybe 4, but now that it's like kind of like sat in my brain a little while, 5 stars. Because even like over Christmas, like I was showing my brother-in-law who. Like, I had him read Invincible, but that's really the only comics he's ever read. But I was like, oh, like, look at these concepts that they're using for this, and, like, kind of talking about, like the phalanx and different things like that.
Right.
And I was like, just read this, like, info page. And, like, usually I hate info pages, but, like, these are the ones that I was like, whoa, my brain loves this. So,
ooh, okay.
So, if you haven't checked it out, I'd check it out. Then, read Captain America White. Back to some Tim Sale. 5 stars. That was really good. Maybe I'd have to do like a ranking of like, you know, Captain America White, Hulk Gray, Spider-Man Blue, all that kind of stuff.
Yellow.
Right. Ooh, Daredevil Yellow is a good one. So yeah, 5 stars on that. Anything Tim Sale is going to be 5 stars, though. Spoiler alert. Then read some more Champions. This was like their 3rd iteration. I'll give you 4 stars on this one. They're kind of losing the plot a little bit. The first 2 were really good. Then we're kind of like weaving in some more characters.
Diminishing returns, it seems.
Yeah,
as it goes.
yeah. So we'll see how the new Champions turn out. That just came out last week or this week, so I'll give that a try. I don't have
the update.
Super high hopes for it, but once it comes on the app, I'll start reading it. Then going into Moon Knight. This was an Infinity comic. It was I don't know. It's just a Moon Knight story. It's not doesn't really tie into like the world so much. It's just kind of like him escaping from like an asylum. 2 stars, not super necessary, but I like to mix in some Infinity Comics, just kind of like quicker reads.
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man presents Black Cat. 2 stars, very forgettable. Not that great. Like this wasn't even that long ago that I read it, but not. Oh,
already left your mind.
No, okay. I'm remembering it now. It's better than 2 stars. The art was cool. 3 stars.
3.
Ultimate Daredevil and Elektra. I think that's the first story is Ultimate Daredevil and Elektra. 5 stars. I liked that. Then there's Ultimate Elektra, a little bit more solo. I'd also give that 5 stars. I really liked their take on Daredevil and Elektra. They're kind of more they're like just starting out. Ultimate Team Ups 1 through 16. 2 stars. I didn't really like those that much. Like the art gets super weird in some of them. Some of the art is good. It's just like a collection of pretty much one shots or like maybe 2 of them tie together, but like you don't have to read them all. Then Ultimate Spider-Man, I got to issue 65, like 1 through 65. That's you know, Tim Sale stuff aside, that was the best thing I read last year. So all the stars for that.
All right.
Ultimate X-Men, I got 1 through 12. 3.5 stars for that. Some of the stuff's a little weird. Some of it's really cool. I think it's kind of weird how cool they think they're being, like with the leather and all that. It's a little weird, but the stories are okay. Then I read House of Harkness, which is another Infinity comic. I was really excited about the Disney Plus Agatha show, so I was reading some Agatha comics. This is very like, I don't know, you might like this, Jordan, where it's like Scarlet Witch goes to like a magic high school to learn how to use her powers, and like everybody's kind of like teenagers, seems very like CW style, like Loki's a kid. It's like anybody that has magic in the Marvel universe is either like a kid at the school or a professor. So it's pretty fun.
See that working.
Doesn't obviously tie into the greater Marvel universe, but it's just its own self-contained Infinity comic. 5 stars. It was fun. Immortal Hulk, we got through 1 through 10. We did a whole episode on that. You can go back and watch.
Go back and see our thoughts on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, go watch that episode to see my ranking. Ultimate X-Men, just a tie-in. Rounding out the year, finished with Sentry, kind of the 2000s, the original like start to Sentry, and then the Sentry tie-ins. So like there was like Sentry Hulk, Sentry Fantastic Four, all those. I'd give that 5 stars. I think especially like the main storyline was really cool with kind of remembering who Sentry was, kind of forgotten hero, a little bit darker. You don't know if he's crazy or if he actually is a superhero. And then finishing off that story, finding out that Sentry is also the Void, I think was a cool like twist of like, because like I already knew that stuff like from reading Avengers and I'd read the story before, but I just imagine if you were reading that for the first time and not knowing who the character is, that'd be super cool.
Yeah, I reread that one with you, and I think that one is pretty cool. I think that to me is one of the more like creative, innovative, like time and effort put into something totally new that's not tied into something, which I think we've talked about wishing there was more of that. Like you're not just going to keep pumping out the same stuff. You're going to say, here's a new thing. So I agree. I think for thinking about all those factors, I think it still holds up. It's a pretty cool story.
Yeah. So that is all over 600 books. There's some annuals tied in and thrown in to some of that stuff, but over 600 issues overall. I think it was a good year of comics. There was hardly anything that I picked up that I was like, and I'm done reading this. It's not good. So I was lucky there.
Okay. So 600 comics, folks. You let us know what you were reading this year, or last year, I guess, what some of your favorite books were, what Dakota and I need to be reading this year, because we're always looking for good recommendations. And I'm serious, Dakota, about doing a rundown at the end of the year. We'll both log our stuff. You'll probably have way more than me. But I think it'd be fun to do that. Maybe have folks call in and let us know what they've been reading this year. So, folks, get your trackers out. Log your comics this year. Please be liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, as always, Stay strong.